Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today for this fireside chat with Akshay. Akshay is a co-founder at Shebang. All of you are aspiring marketers or existing marketers, so I'm sure you all already know Shebang. If not, you all should know Shebang for some great work that they're doing in this space. He was previously at Foxy Moron, and today he drives one of the top agencies in the domain. So today we're going to get to learn a lot from his insights on how to make a stellar career in the digital marketing domain. And, hopefully it'll benefit you guys, us select learners, to be a part of this chat, to chart out a great career for you all. So, Akshay, I'm glad you're doing better. I just hope you get to Bombay safe. In the meanwhile, I'm assuming you're back to work and everything?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been working from Dubai only. That's been the work from home for me has become work from Dubai because I've been here in the past I'm almost 3 weeks now, actually. So I'm back tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, hopefully
Okay.
I'll be home.
Awesome. Great. So thanks for taking our time for joining us. I know it's been hectic with all the backlog you must be having in terms of work.
Yeah,
But
no problem.
rest assured, this is definitely going to help a bunch of people out there who are currently watching and who will watch this video in the future
Sure.
in terms of, building great careers. So on that note, let's dive in. The first question that I have for you is also very connected to this, right? The first question that I have for you is, given that 2022 has just started off, we're at the early stage of it.
Yeah.
What do you think are the most lucrative career paths coming up in this year?
Yeah. So I'll just give some context to where the industry is moving towards, because there's a lot of where the industry is moving towards will determine the kind of roles and positions we'll have seen, coming up in agencies like a Shebang, where people can actually come and apply to us for. So if you see, like, very recently, a lot of the kind of chatter that has been happening has been in the technology space. So, right from your metaverses to NFTs to building direct to consumer websites, for example, to also building applications for driving consumer conversions. So a lot of those kind of conversations are going to be happening in 2022. So you can expect a lot of roles to come from that domain as well, from the technology side to it. From the more performance side, so what we've seen is that the way the platforms have evolved over time is that a lot of what we do on social today is very organic, but we've got to boost that with inorganic promotions, because a lot of the way the algorithms are working against the brands or working against the agencies because they want us to spend. So a lot of the new age roles are going to be in the media performance space as well, in terms of good planners, good buyers, good optimizers, for example, people who understand programmatic buying, for example. And the third kind of profile, which has been an evergreen profile, has been people who are interested in content writing and creativity, because that's at the heart of everything that brands do on the social or on the digital domains, right? So again, I'll get into more specific roles as well as we speak through today's session. But just broadly, if I had to bucket them, it would be technology, media, very, very large opportunities there, and third has got to be the creative and the content side of the business. Of course, around that there will be a lot of ancillaries like influencer marketing and like branding and design. But if I just broadly bucket them into three parts, right now it's technology, media, and content. And I'll talk more about the kind of roles as we go on as well, basis what is open at Shebang. Yeah.
Sure, definitely. No, that's very interesting, right? Also, I've seen some of that, right? As an entrepreneur, you feel that hey, it's getting more difficult to acquire customers from Facebook. The spends are going up, so it's everyday problems for us, which would be great if someone can solve.
Yeah.
That being said, do you think any particular, most of the people who are watching this are at the early stage of their careers, right?
Yeah.
So do you think any particular domain is better than any other for them when they're starting off their career, or are you from the school of thought that focus on what you love or what you're great at, and all domains will give you great opportunities ultimately.
Yeah, like I'll draw a parallel. Right? When I began my career, so like 11 years ago, actually, we had only about 5 or 6 domains to specialize in. So I could be a content writer, I could be a designer, I could be a UI UX graphic guy. I could be a specialist in writing copies for Twitter, for example. So we broadly had about 5 or 6 different domains. Today, as we speak, at Shebang, for example, we have 45 different domains. 45
Wow.
different opportunities to actually find your calling. But my push to the candidates over here would be that um, pick up a specialization which you have an inkling towards, because even within that inkling, say for example you are interested in design. Under design, you can have so many different domains that you can explore once you join the agency. But back in my day, when I said design, design meant designing posts for social media or designing a web page. Today, design could be QC, could be UI UX, could be branding, could be social posting, and each of these also have different levels among them, right? So you can be, say, a design lead, you could be an art director, you could be a junior designer. So there are many even levels between these different, specializations. So my urge to all people on the call would be that take up a domain which you have an inclination towards. If you're interested in writing, now writing, for example, you could be a script writer, you could be a creative writer, you could be a person writing copies for social content, for example. You could also be someone who specializes in writing long format content for websites and blogs. So even writing in itself has about 8-10 different subdomains within itself. So I would say whatever your inclination is towards, could be technology, could be design, could be writing, could be even influencer marketing for that matter. Specialize in that domain and then find a subdomain under that which you are more inclined towards.
Understood. Got
Because
it.
like
So get a
a lot of what you will do eventually in life will come from what your interests are, right? What your personal interests are going to be. So if you do have a specialization, or you have a strength, I would say harness that strength and then find a more specialization among that strength itself, instead of
got
being
it.
too wide and too broad and then trying to figure out things on the job. Of course, like agencies will give you the opportunity to also grow and experiment with different opportunities, but it's important when you're talking to your recruiter that you have a clear bent of mind as to what you want to achieve. Like many times I meet candidates who say, okay, I don't mind doing this or this. Now that doesn't show clarity of thought, right? Like it's like saying, okay, fine, I'm shooting in the dark, whatever comes my way, I'll take it up. But what if you don't like it when you actually come onto the floor and start doing that, doing that role? It becomes a waste of time for you and for me as a recruiter, right? So it makes sense to have some inclination. Then of course you can explore that inclination a lot more once you come onto the floor at the agency.
Makes sense. So get into a rough domain of interest and then fine tune
Yeah.
over time.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
And what we also promote a lot for people who join Shebang is that we allow them to move departments after a year and a half or two. So say for example, you've spent enough time. So like I have many guys who've been working with us as a content writer, but now they've moved to the video department because they've realized they want to, instead of writing campaign content, they want to actually create videos or want to write
All
films.
right, scripts.
So or
Yeah.
write scripts, right? So they've moved departments over time, but they've learned the domain that they started off their journey in. They've experienced whatever they had to experience there. Now they've moved to something which they're more inclined towards, and of course because they've learned for those 2 years, they can take those learnings into writing scripts as well, right? So eventually they've got to do something which is adding value to the company as well.
Makes sense. Understood. And taking up from that thread that you mentioned, the agency is looking for you to be more clear of what you want to achieve. So,
Yeah.
from your perspective, what does an agency look for when they're looking to hire a candidate? When they're recruiting.
Yeah. So, I mean, a few things that come to mind and something that I keep looking at in the resume. Of course, the CV is very important. The CV gives you a one-page, indication of what the candidate has done. Of course, it's not the know all and end all, because it's very difficult to crunch your entire life cycle into a one-pager. But what I do look for in candidates is that I try looking for what are some of the past experiences, right? Like have they interned somewhere? Have they run a community before? Have they worked in certain college communities where they've been exposed towards leadership, for example? So I do look at some of the real world work that they've done, over and above their, just their typical marks and where they've come from and which college they've come from. So I think a lot of that experiential things what I look for very importantly. And I think the quest to learn, right? Like you can very easily gauge from the interview the kind of questions that also the candidate asked you. So I always end my interviews by asking one question saying, do you have any questions for me? Based on the kind of questions that they are asking me, I'm able to gauge how inclined are they towards joining my company? How inclined are they towards taking up the role they're actually interviewing for? By the nature of questions they're asking me as well. So I think that quest to learn, that inquisitiveness, I can actually gauge right from the interview process itself. That are they coming with a bent of mind saying, "I want to learn and grow in this company," and hey, I have 5 questions for you. So I think that's something I look for very importantly. And C is like just the body language, right? Like the body language tells a lot about the candidate. Like you know the way they're open to talking, to learning, to listening very importantly. And I think being a good listener is a very, very important trait to have even in an interview, because many times you see candidates trying to like overshadow you, overpower you by
Mm-hmm.
trying to impose their point of view to prove a point. But I think having a conversation which is slightly more two-way goes a long way in also building that rapport, because eventually the candidate has 30 minutes to make or break what they're actually going to come and do with you in the company. Of course, we do test people. We will have assignments being sent out, but that 30-minute conversation becomes so important that it's got to be two-way in that sense. So yeah. So I would say to sum it up, great conversation, their inquisitiveness to learn by the kind of questions they're asking the interviewer, and sees, of course, the kind of past experiences they have in terms of the actual work they've done, and not just, I've got 85% marks in college. Okay, it's great, good for you,
Understood.
but what else have you done beyond that?
Yeah, that's basic. What have you done beyond that in your life? Got it.
Absolutely, yeah,
Um, and so this is the interview stage, right? Before you even
yeah,
get to interview,
yeah,
when the agency is filtering through CVs or filtering through emails, right?
yeah,
What is it looking for at that point, right? What in a CV
yeah,
suffices as
yeah.
interest for a screening call or an interview?
Yeah, yeah. I think very importantly, what's the past experiences the candidate has had in the same domain. So, say for example, someone's applying to me for a content writing position. We do see how many years of experience they actually have in content writing, because at least we know they've done or they've been trained up to an extent. Also, today we've come to a point wherein we do try to hire a lot from other agencies as well, because we know that they would probably come slightly trained, they would come with
Mhm.
some know-how. So we do look at the past experiences, because you can tell how much would they know looking at where they worked in the past. Also very importantly, we try looking at some of the brands that they worked on, um, because the nature of the brands, like for example at Shebang, we work with almost 150 really large MNC brands, right? So we try looking for candidates who have some experience working with the larger brands, because the way the larger brands work as compared to the typical startup small homegrown brands is very different from a mindset perspective, right from the kind of budgets to the scale to the number of things the brands want to achieve on the platform. So we also look at the kind of brands the candidate has been exposed to in the past, to just give us an inclination towards whether they can work with these large companies going forward as well. So I
Mhm.
think surely like relevant experience and the kind of brands they work with.
And in case someone's never worked before in the domain, right, formally,
Yeah, yeah,
does a certificate or does a course then matter? Does it help,
absolutely. It
or
does, it does.
do y'all don't look at it?
No, it does a lot, because again today, like just like you guys, there are many institutions out there who are training people in digital marketing. So we do look for that if they've come specifically trained in a particular domain from a reputed company like yours as well, because we know that at least their fundamental basics will be taken care of, and we don't need to train them right from scratch. So it of course
Got it.
helps when they're coming with like a 3 month, 6 month, 12 month certification course that they've done with a reputed institution, and that really helps a lot. Yeah.
Understood. And does a certificate matter more, or do you look at the projects that they've done? Which one do you think is more important?
So I would honestly, like, personally, I look at the projects because I can see what they've done. Like, of course, the certification is important to get your marks and to perform and, do your assignments and everything. But I try looking at what they've done in the assignment because that gives me an indication as to how they're able to actually think through a problem, very importantly, because the assignment will actually pose them a problem, a real world problem, and they've got to actually answer that in the most creative manner or in the best fashion, right? So I do look at the assignments very closely as well, because the certification is a derivation of course the kind of marks they've scored and probably also the assignments. So I tried digging one step deeper into seeing what have they done to get the certification.
Got it. So you want to see their approach to work. That's basically what ultimately matters, right? Either at work, and if not at work, then in a course.
Yeah, because see, eventually, like, I'm also training them on the job, right? I've got to spend the time training the candidates. So if I know they already understand the fundamentals, for example, it saves me as a company a lot of time and effort doing that job on the candidate, right? So if I can see that in the assignments, it's half the job done for me.
Got it. So let's say someone has done a course or done some interesting work, and has some projects to show.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, an agency like yours or any top organization gets tons of applications, right? Across, from LinkedIn, from email, from all of that. How does someone stand up? Your attention.
So I think I lost the voice, yeah, but I think got a question. Yeah. So how does a candidate stand out? Is the question?
Yes.
Yeah. So so again, the thing is, we have a portal from where candidates can actually apply to us directly on the portal. So we have something called Zoho People. People can actually apply to us, through the careers tab on the website, and we do get like all of these resumes into one database where we're able to see exactly what their past experiences are, what their current CTC is, what their expected CTC is. So we do have a few parameters there in itself that we sort of keep in mind while shortlisting candidates, and one of them, of course, comes down to their current CTC. So I'm not saying that that's the only thing we look at, but where they are currently at in terms of how much are they currently drawing from the current job, or in case they're a fresher, what's the current expectations. Second, of course, as I mentioned, like, we do look at their past experiences very importantly, if they've got a certification, if they've learned somewhere or they've worked somewhere, and sees if they have any leadership qualities. So where we are as a company is that we try looking and identifying leaders for tomorrow, because as the company is growing, we're also trying to imbibe leadership within the systems directly, right from the time they actually join the company. So I try looking for, if you have any leadership qualities, it's important to call that out right in your resume, because that goes a long way in convincing us that, hey, you can lead people, you can, actually take forward and grow a team going forward as well. So a few things that really matters. Yeah, I think, don't your resume needs to be one page, not more than that. Very importantly, like, don't create like a 5-pager to try and like stuff in as much as you can. I would say keep it to the point, and go in reverse order, right? So talk about your most recent work that you've done. Talk about the most recent online courses or whatever trainings that you've done recently, and then go down from there. I often see people talking about their school first, they go into their college next, then they'll talk about their first job, their internships. If you can go in reverse chronological order, it tells me what you've done the most recent in your past. And that also helps you stand out, because it saves us a lot of time of having to sift through the entire resume and check every single line item basically. So
Makes sense.
yeah.
And any example of some of the most unique applications that you all received, which definitely got that person a chance of having the CV properly reviewed or a
Yeah.
screening call?
Yeah, so I'll tell you. So this guy wrote to me recently, this was during the lockdown actually. So he'd been writing to Shebang since the past year and a half, and unfortunately his resume was not making the cut for whatever reason. So I recently received a box. Okay, I received like a cardboard box which had one shoe in it, and a note. Okay, it was addressed to me. So my admin staff came to me with this box, and he's like, someone sent you a gift. And I was luckily at my desk at that point in time. It had one shoe inside, a Nike shoe, and the card said, now that I've got one foot inside the door, please give me another shot at the application. Um, Extremely creative. It was an original Nike shoe, so I don't know why he spent that much money on buying those shoes or whatever. So immediately, I mean, we had a call that was made to him, and we did interview him eventually. Unfortunately, it did not go through. We did not hire him eventually, but I thought that was a damn creative idea, right? To get the attention of a company founder. And again, like it became like a talking point within my recruitment group, and they were like, the kind of extent that people go to actually find a job with you, right? Like it's so creative.
Mm.
But my requests sometimes don't sound too overtly desperate as well. Like it's good to catch the attention, but don't be too pestering. Is what I would also suggest as a takeout to all the people listening on right now. That um, like you can tell when someone's trying to be overtly pushy. So yeah,
Got it.
yeah,
Makes sense. So stand out, but don't be pushy.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, like even like a good cover mail, for example, is enough to stand out, right? Like a good cover mail, like instead of saying PFA, my resume, if you can talk a little bit about what you are doing, what are your growth potentials, what are you seeing adding value to the companies? Because see, whenever someone's applying to Shebang, what we're looking at is that how are they adding value to my company and to my brands, very importantly, right? So if that cover mail can talk a bit about what are your personal motivations. How will you add value to the company? That can go a long way in deciding whether I actually call you on or not. And also, I think it's the way the person communicates, right? Very important because you are in a communications job. Today, digital marketing is you're communicating either through design, through copy, through scripts, through videos. How are you able to actually frame a good cover letter, a good cover note? Goes a long way in deciding whether you actually get that call or not.
Talking about campaigns, let's would love to learn more about what's been your favorite campaign at Shebang. What's been the best award-winning campaign according to you?
So, so very recently, I mean, we've been working with a brand called Cipla. Now, Cipla is, against a pharmaceutical company. We came on board with them about 4 years ago, and we took on this campaign called Berog Zindagi, wherein the thought is that today asthma is a very prevalent disease in the country, but not many people actually talk about it openly because it seemed to be like a taboo. It seems to be a taboo subject in our country. So we actually formulated the entire campaign called Bero Zindagi. We got almost 15,000 asthmatics to open up about asthma. We had again the likes of your Priyanka Chopras, and we had like a Parupali Kashyap. We had like many people across different domains who actually came out and spoke about asthma as a cause, and that gave a lot of confidence to real life asthmatics who have been facing asthma for the past so many years to come up and talk about it. And that's been
Mm.
one big social change campaign that we've done in the country that has really increased the sale of inhalers. That we've really opened up the conversation about inhalers in the category in the country, and that's been one of our biggest award-winning campaign because I love being a part of campaigns that have a social connect to it, wherein they're actually making a difference to people's lives through communication. And that's been one of our biggest, award-winning campaign over the past 4 years. I think almost 40, 45 awards we won for that campaign, only from the perspective that we're able to drive social change for a message that is so very prevalent in a country like ours, but is very little spoken about. So the entire campaign was saying that, open up to asthma to live a Berok Zindagi. So today we are actually planning year number 4 for this campaign. And it's just one of those campaigns that it goes on year on year on year. And that's a big learning for anyone on the call that, when we're doing campaigns, look at the longevity of the campaign and don't kill it in the first year. Do it year on year on year because that's when the real change starts actually happening in the industry or in the category. And that's one big campaign that we've done and have been very successful with as well. Yeah.
Very interesting. Now, I've actually seen this one. We have some
Yeah.
family history of asthma in
Yeah.
the family, and it did connect. That's why it caught my attention.
Yeah.
So interesting to know it's a 4-year effort that's built up to this impact.
Yeah, and it's great that we have a client who's willing to spend those many years doing the same message year after year. Of course, the challenge for Shebang is that how do you make the messaging interesting every year? but the fact that the brand wants to stick to the same messaging every year goes a long way in seeing how mature the brand is thinking about the category as well and thinking about the cause as well. So I think we're grateful to have a brand like them on board. And even the client at their end has been the same team right from the beginning. So it's a good thing that we have that continuity happening from day one. And again, that goes a long way in building relationships with the client because we both think the same thing now, right now.
Of course.
Yeah.
Any interesting story behind how y'all came up with the campaign originally, or how y'all are making it more creative from a messaging perspective?
Yeah. So I think what's happening is
Learners can
that,
learn from.
yeah, so I think
Yeah.
what we're doing now is that a lot of what we are doing every year is determined by how the platforms are evolving, right? So, like for example, in year one, we had like a master film, which was like a long format film, and we had like cut downs from it. In year two, we had a lot of influencer marketing happening, a lot of influencers coming on board and making conversation. Now, in year three, what we realize is that a lot of the content needs to be short format. So we move to short format content. This year we're thinking of doing like vertical format content. So it's moving basis how the industry is moving. We also had like a lot of live sessions happening last year because lives became the talking point for all brand marketers. It became like the buzzword. um, we're looking at doing podcasts now because podcasting has become one big aspect of content creation. So podcast has become one part of the content. So it's it's sort of evolved with time basis how the platforms and the content formats have been evolving. um, we're also looking at maybe doing like a song next year because again, music we've seen has seen a comeback. So many brands are using music as an outlet towards creative messaging. So next year we might have like a nice song being created with a big artist, for example, like a famous composer, a famous lyricist, who will create a song around asthma, for example. So yeah, every year has been a derivation of how the platforms have evolved and how content is being consumed in the industry.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So going back one step to work again. So there are a lot of agencies. A lot of them are working with interesting clients. A lot of them, or a lot of brands are interesting brands, right? So when an aspiring marketer is looking to get into an org, uh, some research, understand what the brand's about, pick where they want to work. Some just go all out messaging everyone, right? What would be your suggestion on how someone should go about picking which organization to work at, and what could be couple of the things that stand out about Shebang, or why should someone pick Shebang, right? Who is it the right org for?
So I would always urge people who are starting off their career to join a growing agency, a growing company who has a lot of growth potential, because in the formative years, you've got to get exposure to as many different, creative fields within the agency as possible. And I see that a lot of the growing companies allow candidates to actually experiment with what they're doing and give them a lot more I would say responsibilities within the domain they're trying to specialize in. So I mean, one tip to anyone who's joining, who's starting on the career in digital is join a growing company who is on a growth path to become a lot bigger going forward. So, join a company that's probably 50, 80 people and who has a good growth potential, or who's at least in that startup mode of life. Um, because that will give them a lot more opportunities to experiment and take up responsibilities within that. Of course, today Shebang is 750 people and we are still in a startup mode. And we keep saying this that for us it's 5,000 is going to be the target in terms of number of employees. So from that perspective, we're still a very young company, a very small company from that perspective. So again, the thing is, we try to let people grow within the company and take up responsibility. So most of today's leaders at Shebang are all homegrown. So we've had people who've been with us for the past 6.5 years, and they've grown to becoming vice presidents in their own departments, right? And also because we're growing geographically, so today we're in Mumbai, Bangalore, Delhi. There are a lot of opportunities to grow in different cities as well because they are smaller teams. Like for example, Delhi is about 80, 85 people right now. Bangalore is about 120 people. So even those cities themselves are growing pretty fast. So maybe join a growing team and take up more responsibilities there. And then, we're open to moving people across cities, across countries, maybe very soon. So, yeah.
Got it. But if you want to grow, basically join an org which is growing. That's the simple formula.
Absolutely. And I would say, like, don't join a company which is like 2 or 3 people, because they might not even have processes, but join a company that at least has processes in place. And that's a question you can actually ask a recruiter, that what the kind of processes followed by the agency in order to make the work-life balance a lot more simple, for example,
Got it. So probably 20 people up, 25 people up, it could make some sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Got it. Okay. So I was saying, anything, given your foray in, I think people build better careers, inside and someday outside outside the organization as well. Anything you would think we could particularly help with to build a better, industry?
Yeah, I think that the industry today is so large, and there's so many people who actually want to build a career in digital. There are so many opportunities to actually collaborate in terms of how can curriculum be shared in a way where people can learn effectively and get real world examples. We see like a lot of people who've come with prior experience from the agencies who worked with brands are a lot more stronger in the way they think, right? So I think even if it means sharing case studies, sharing learnings of real world examples with brands, I think that will go a long way in giving candidates perspective as to how brands are actually built. And that's the kind of learning that we look at in the candidate as well, that are they able to see how brands have been built, and if they can get if you can actually share curriculum or even share the case studies which will give people perspective. I think that will be a long like a great way of collaborating with different companies.
Awesome. I think we can get in touch offline for taking this forward. So,
Yeah.
moving towards the last question, right? And guys, everyone who is watching, if you all have any questions, please put it in the chat box. We'll open it for a quick Q&A while we wrap up the last question from my end. So, to wrap up, what is that one power move you think anyone in this domain should make in 2022 to, become a more awesome marketer?
I would suggest, like, stay up to speed with the trends. Again, the industry is moving really quickly. Um, and one big buzzword right now within companies and within agencies are the entire NFT space, the metaverse space, right? So if you want to learn some aspects of that, of course, it stems from cryptocurrency. I'm not saying, go and start investing in cryptos, but at least understand the fundamentals of what is blockchain, what is cryptocurrency, what are NFTs, how can NFTs be used for brand building. Potentially, if the metaverse does become a big buzzword in the next couple of years, how can brands integrate within the metaverse? So a lot of learning can come from these new trends in the industry, and so don't just stick to knowing, okay, how to write great copy, but think of how the platforms have evolved and see what are brands able to explore in these new domains as well. So at least to from a learning standpoint, if not implementation, but at least to understand what can be done over there.
Makes sense. That's one of the things I'm learning as well currently.
Yeah, same here.
But
All the
great,
time, actually. Yeah.
great. This is very insightful. Thank you, Akshay, for all the insights.
Sure.
It was lovely hosting you and learning from your insights. Right, good learning from me as well. You never stop learning.
Yes, absolutely. Keep learning, keep researching. I mean, just have that thirst, that hunger to keep going, I guess. Yeah.
Of course. Thanks, Akshay. We will be in touch, and thank you everyone who joined in. Keep learning, keep moving forward, and looking forward to seeing what you guys achieve out of your courses.
Thanks so much, guys. See you soon. Bye.
Okay, bye.